What's the good word? DKB here. So which direction are we going to go when it comes to the big three quarterbacks? Lamar Jackson in an ideal world, Aaron Rodgers, same in an ideal world, and Derek Carr, or the big three guys that the New York Jets will potentially be looking at in terms of the most bang for their buck, if we're able to ink one of them to a new contract or just acquire them via trade. Now, last bits that we heard surrounding those three, Aaron Rodgers, apparently the Packers are ready to move on from him. They just need to figure out what's going to be the best situation, not only for themselves, but Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is also apparently aware of this, but we haven't heard anything in terms of what he's leaning towards doing, retiring, continuing to play. And then, of course, if he does want to continue, there's going to be a litany of issues for them to figure out. Contract situations, trade value, Aaron Rodgers kind of blessing who the team acquiring him would be. And then in Lamar Jackson's situation, we know that he's been heavily involved in the offensive coordinator search, and he's taken a more hands-on approach with the franchise in terms of what's going to happen in free agency and then the NFL draft. So it's looking like a long shot for those two for sure. And Derek Carr has been the guy that originally and kind of consistently has been deemed the most accessible quarterback for us, and one that can still lead us to the playoffs and beyond as well. And we haven't heard much from him since the early cycles of the playoffs, where he gave his farewell speech to the team after being sat the last 2 or 3 games of the season. And now it looks like everybody's just kind of playing the waiting game with how the Raiders want to handle his contract. They have until 3 days after the Super Bowl, essentially, to either pay the man up, where he's going to have his contract fully guaranteed, or they'll have to cut / release him or find a trade partner at that point. I think a lot of the feedback was positive in the beginning cycles, again, when we had Derek Carr essentially being mocked to us as a potential trade target. Things have cooled off quite a bit, and it seems like a lot of it is focused around this one stat that I keep seeing pop up, where I believe it's his record being 2-7 in extremely cold environments, which obviously is a huge factor, right? New York, one of the coldest markets that you can enter into, so I'm sure the team will have to do a lot of digging and things there. But at least from the Jets side, the most recent report that we got, according to our sources, that the New York Jets are finally diving into what it may take to acquire him, and what that whole situation will end up looking like, as Nathaniel Hackett, who we recently signed to be our offensive coordinator, tries to find the unenviable job of seeing what quarterback can deliver some success to this franchise. So Derek Carr may be the guy. Honestly, I'm a lot higher on Derek Carr coming over than many are. Again, between that stat, a lot of people throw out his win-loss record with him not being a winning quarterback in the league. There's a lot more context that you have to center around that. I mean, 2015 and 2017 statistically were some of his best years. We're talking about the weapons that were available to him during that time range being Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, Latavius Murray, Marshawn Lynch for that year's stint, and then Jared Cook, which these are all guys that were above average. Nobody that was necessarily top tier. Amari Cooper kind of being a breakout rookie and then consistently impacting things. Michael Crabtree being on the down side of his career, but still putting in excellent performances. Even reaching 1,000 yards with Amari Cooper during, I want to say, the 2016 season. Latavius Murray was a beast for his time frame there. Marshawn Lynch came in and did the things that they did. And Jared Cook was probably his most prominent weapon for splurts during those years. We fast forward a little bit, everything beyond that, really he's only had a Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, and Josh Jacobs, who were all fairly new to this Las Vegas Raiders team at the time. So, the only criticism that I would necessarily say maybe we should, keep an eye on is that he hasn't necessarily been able to elevate the talent around him. But I would also argue that there hasn't really been much proven NFL talent for him to try to elevate to begin with. I mean, there's a bunch of Sharon Peaks essentially at one point for New York Jets reference that he was working with. Again, nowhere near as bad as probably what the New York Jets had established as weapons for years and years. But he made the most of a bad situation when he could. Some of the other things is that, again, going back to him not being a winning quarterback, I would put a lot of onus on the defenses that the Raiders have built around him, as well as the offensive lines. But more specifically, the defense was never really able to hold its end of the bargain. I mean, for Derek Carr's 9-year stretch, that average rank for the defense in scoring was 26th in the NFL. The average for yards allowed was 23rd. So there wasn't really too many excellent years or years where they weren't letting up, 30 plus points on a consistent basis. And while Derek Carr has proven that he can win some shootouts, you don't want to have that mentality for 16 games, season in and season out. So there's a lot of labor that was put in on his side, but some of the things as well that I think are important and kind of intriguing surrounding his career there is, especially in the last couple of years, he's been an above average deep ball passer, which is something we should be extremely excited about. I mean, for the most part, we struggle to come across big plays consistently for any stretch of time within a game, let alone over the course of a season. This is really the first time we've gotten a taste of that in quite some time, with Garrett Wilson being the new exciting addition, seeing Breece Hall break off multiple huge runs and things of that nature. So we're looking forward to more of that. But again, it still was an offense that truly wasn't fully unlocked. And, if you want to feed into what Quentin Williams' deleted tweet was about playing behind a porous offense, that lets you know how bad it was. But we're also talking about him still being a 3-time Pro Bowler, again, during that stretch between 2015 and 2017. We forget he was one of the top 3 players to finish in the MVP race back in his 2016 season. And there was an interesting nugget that I've seen. The 2014 draft class was not an excellent one by any stretch of the imagination, but Derek Carr actually has more touchdowns than all of the quarterbacks drafted ahead of him from that draft, which would be Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, and Johnny Manziel. And I know that doesn't light up the memory bank for a lot of people, but still, we're talking about first-round quarterbacks. As a second-rounder, it hasn't been many of those guys that have come out and had the quality of success that he's done. So I think when you translate his skill set and what he's been able to accomplish, strong arm passer, we see that he's attacking the deep ball more and more, picking up those chunk plays. We have a strong running back like he had in Josh Jacobs behind him. We'll rebuild the offensive line, and we'll be able to provide something to a lot of these quarterbacks that they haven't really had whatsoever, which is a top 5, top 10 defense if there's a little bit of regression. So he won't have to shoulder everything on the back of his arm or off the strength of his arm anyways. And so really the last couple pieces here to figure out would be trade compensation. Some of the recent sources I've seen said that the Raiders may need to settle instead of hoping they can actually get a round 1 draft pick. Just based off the situation, everybody knows that they can wait it out. It's just going to be a matter of some team wants to go ahead and acquire the rights now and figure out a restructure, or if they're comfortable trying to get into a bidding war if they really think that's going to be the best route. But I'm hearing a 2nd or 3rd round pick could potentially get it done. We'll see what happens there. That would be music to our ears. I'm not excited about the prospects of giving up a round 1 or multiple round 1s for an Aaron Rodgers. I would even argue that the talent gap isn't so significant between Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers in terms of $20 million plus contract value that we couldn't, help elevate the roster to kind of meet whatever Aaron Rodgers would provide for us. Also, it'll just help out in free agency talks. If we already know who our quarterback would be, in this case, Derek Carr, it makes those conversations for additional weapons coming along so much more smoother. Nathaniel Hackett's in place. Derek Carr's in place. People know what Garrett Wilson did last year. They know what Breece Hall has done and what they expect him to come back and look like. And so your pitches become that much more effective. And then you just, of course, you have to draft capital. I don't really want to have to sit out an entire first round of the draft. And we still need a lot of work that has to go to the offensive line. If there's a so-called unicorn at safety or linebacker, I'd like to grab one of those. But if not, continue pouring into the weapons. We've seen another Ohio State wide receiver that was mocked in the first round for him. there's just a lot that goes into it. Plus, if we really want to go all in on Aaron Rodgers, it's going to set us back so much because best case scenario, nothing happens with them until June 1st. That's pretty much the end all be all about it. So if we have Derek Carr now, Nathaniel Hackett can already start game planning what's his offense to look like versus what Derek Carr can bring to him, and start trying to figure out what pieces can help elevate the game. But either way, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Where do you sit on Derek Carr becoming the starting quarterback for the New York Jets in the 2023 season? And maybe what kind of contract you see him getting from us. Ideally, I would imagine Joe Douglas would like to stick to another 3-year contract. I can't see him, especially on what a lot of people are considering a career year for Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas in terms of staying with the Jets. Him offering some kind of huge mega contract that's going to be 5 and 6 years, and he won't even be there. But we'll see. Either way, though, appreciate the support. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.